In the cozy little meadow of Mossy Burrow, where the grass tickled your toes and the carrots grew sweeter than candy, lived a small bunny with big ears and an even bigger heart. His name was Benny. Now, Benny wasn't the biggest bunny. He wasn't the fastest, and he definitely wasn't the loudest. But Benny had something special. Benny was brave. Not the fight a dragon with a sword kind of brave. Benny was the kind of brave that whispers, "I'm scared, but I'll try anyway." One bright morning, Benny hopped out of his burrow and stretched so far his ears nearly touched the clouds. He was on a very important mission, a carrot mission. Because today was Grandma Wiggletail's birthday, and Benny wanted to pick the biggest, crunchiest, most perfect carrot in the whole meadow. He bounced along, humming his favorite tune, "Hop, hop, hoppity hop, carrots make me strong." But then, rustle, 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 Benny froze, his nose twitched. His ears stood straight up like tall spoons. The bush beside him shook like it was full of angry bees. Benny's heart did a little somersault. "Oh no," Benny whispered. It's a rustle." Benny didn't know what it was, but his imagination did. And Benny's imagination was a bit dramatic. It pictured a hungry fox wearing sneaky socks, a giant snake with shiny teeth, or maybe even a monster with 12 elbows and 1 eyebrow. Benny took one tiny step back, then another, until his tail bumped into a rock. "Okay," Benny said to himself, his voice shaking like jelly. "I am Benny the Brave Bunny, and I can do brave things." He gulped, then he leaned forward and squeaked, "Hello. Who's in there?" The bush went quiet for 1 second. Then, boing, out popped a tiny squirrel. She had a leaf stuck on her head like a funny hat, and she looked just as surprised as Benny. "Ah!" yelled the squirrel. "Ah!" yelled Benny. Then they both blinked and started laughing. "I'm Suki," said the squirrel, brushing the leaf off her head. "I was looking for my acorn. I dropped it in the bush." Benny let out a long breath. "Oh," he said, "I thought you were a monster." Suki giggled. "I thought you were a monster." Benny smiled. But then his smile faded because he remembered something. The carrot, the perfect birthday carrot. He looked toward the far side of the meadow where the biggest carrots grew, and his whiskers drooped. The far side of the meadow was called Shadowy Hollow, the place where shadows lived. Now, Shadowy Hollow wasn't dangerous, it wasn't full of monsters, and it didn't have spooky ghosts. But it had something that made Benny's tummy wobble. It had shadows, big shadows, long shadows. Shadows that stretched across the ground like giant fingers. Benny had always avoided Shadowy Hollow. Not because he was a scaredy bunny, but because shadows were confusing. Sometimes they looked like wolves, sometimes they looked like dragons. Sometimes they looked like a very angry broccoli. Benny stared at the path leading to Shadowy Hollow. Suki noticed. "Are you going there?" she asked. Benny nodded slowly. "I need the perfect carrot for Grandma Wiggletail's birthday." Suki's eyes sparkled. "I'll come with you." Benny's ears perked up. "Really? Of course," said Suki. "Two brave adventurers are braver than one." Benny wasn't sure that was exactly how bravery worked. But he liked the idea. They reached the edge of Shadowy Hollow. The air felt cooler here. The trees leaned close together like they were sharing secrets. Benny swallowed. Suki whispered, "Okay, I admit it. This place is a little spooky." Benny nodded. Then a shadow moved across the ground. It was tall. It was pointy. It looked like a monster with sharp claws. Benny's paws went stiff. Suki squeaked. Benny's heart said, "Run, run, run." But Benny's brave heart said something else. "Look again." Benny took one step closer, then another. The shadow grew bigger. Benny's knee shook. He lifted his paw and waved at it. The shadow waved back. Benny frowned. He moved his paw again. The shadow copied him perfectly. Benny blinked. Then he looked up, and there it was, a tree branch. A normal, harmless tree branch shaped like a claw. Benny exhaled. "It's just a branch," he said. Suki clapped. "You did it. You didn't run." Benny's ears wiggled proudly. They walked deeper. The shadows got longer. Then they saw another one. This shadow looked like a giant snake. It curled and twisted on the ground. Suki grabbed Benny's arm. "Benny, that shadow has a tail." Benny gulped. His nose twitched. His brave heart whispered, Try one brave thing." So Benny picked up a little pebble and tossed it at the shadow. The pebble went plop, right through it. Benny stared. Then he looked up. It was a rope hanging from a tree, swinging gently in the wind. Suki laughed so hard she almost fell over. "A shadow snake," she giggled. "That's silly." Benny laughed too. His fear shrank just a little, like a balloon losing air. They were almost at the carrot patch now. Benny could smell it. Sweet, earthy, delicious carrot smell. But then, they saw it. A shadow so big it covered the whole path. It had two horns, two huge arms. And it looked like it was standing right in front of them. Benny stopped. Suki stopped. Neither of them laughed. This shadow was different. It didn't look silly. It looked real. Benny's heart did a flip. Suki whispered, "Benny, I think that one is actually a monster." Benny's paws trembled. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to go home. But then Benny remembered Grandma Wiggletail, her warm hugs, her birthday song. The way she always said, "Benny, bravery isn't being fearless. Bravery is being kind, even when you're scared." Benny took a deep breath. And he did the bravest thing he had ever done. He stepped forward and said, "Hello." The shadow didn't move. Benny stepped closer. Excuse me, I need to pass." The shadow stayed still. Benny's whiskers quivered. He looked up slowly, very slowly. And there, in the tree above, was a huge shape. Big ears, round belly, to horn like sticks. Benny's eyes widened. It wasn't a monster, it was Mr. Hootsworth the owl, asleep in a funny position, with two twigs stuck on his head. Benny stared, Suki stared. Then Benny burst out laughing. Suki burst out laughing. And even Mr. Hootsworth blinked awake and said, "Hooey!" They reached the carrot patch at last. Benny found it, the biggest carrot, the crunchiest carrot. The most perfect carrot in the whole meadow. It was so big Benny had to drag it like a suitcase. Suki helped, pushing from behind. "Hop," said Benny. "Hop," said Suki. Together they rolled and tugged and wiggled it all the way back to Mossy Burrow. When Benny arrived, Grandma Wiggletail was sitting outside her burrow, sipping dandelion tea. Benny presented the carrot proudly. "Happy birthday, Grandma." Grandma's eyes sparkled. "Oh my," she said. "This is the most wonderful carrot I've ever seen." Benny beamed. Then Grandma leaned in and whispered, "And you know what's even more wonderful?" Benny blinked. "What?" Grandma booped his nose gently. "My brave bunny." Benny's cheeks warmed. He looked at Suki, who gave him a proud little grin. Benny realized something important. He was still afraid of shadows sometimes. But now he knew a secret. Shadows can look scary. But they're often just ordinary things wearing spooky shapes. And that's why, in Mossy Burrow, when a bunny feels scared, they say, "Be like Benny, take one brave step. Then look again," because bravery isn't about never being afraid. Bravery is about being afraid and hopping forward anyway. Thanks for listening to our story. See you next time.